Joseph Duggar is no longer in custody after posting bond in Bay County, Florida today.
Or maybe someone with a limo service, or maybe a large family.
Jim Bob Duggar built a massive television empire on a carefully curated, squeaky clean image, and he guarded that lucrative facade with the most vicious legal weapon available in Hollywood, the $1 million non-disclosure agreement. For over a decade, every single TLC camera operator, audio mixer, field producer and lighting assistant who stepped foot inside the massive Duggar compound or travelled with the family was forced to sign these ironclad, suffocating legal documents. They were specifically designed by top-tier lawyers to ensure that the family's darkest, most disturbing secrets never saw the light of day. It was Jim Bob's ultimate insurance policy, a muzzle placed on the very people who watched the family's every move. But in his supreme arrogance, Jim Bob completely forgot one basic, undeniable rule of American law. An NDA is entirely, instantly voided the very second a felony crime is being investigated. The walls of silence are officially crashing down, and the sickening truth about what really happened off camera during the infamous 2020 Florida trip is finally being exposed by the very crew members forced to film it. Before we dive deep into these shocking leaked audio tapes and the explosive testimonies that are about to destroy the Duggar empire once and for all, please make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update on this massive unfolding scandal. Your support helps us keep bringing you the truth. For years, the Duggar family used these aggressive NDAs as a blunt weapon to silence whistleblowers, terrify low-level production assistants and keep their wholesome, ultra-religious image completely intact for the viewing public. They operated under the absolute certainty that their dirty laundry would remain hidden because the financial ruin hanging over the crew's heads was simply too terrifying. But now, in a stunning twist of fate, those exact same legal documents are entirely worthless. According to insider reports and exclusive theories pieced together from legal movements, Florida prosecutors are actively bypassing the civil NDAs and issuing direct, inescapable subpoenas to former Counting On crew members. The Florida State Attorney's Office is not asking politely. They are legally compelling these former TLC employees to sit down in closed-door depositions and testify under oath about Joseph Duggar's specific, deeply alarming behaviour when the cameras supposedly stopped rolling. This is the ultimate trap moment for the Duggars. A legal mechanism they used to build an impenetrable fortress of secrecy is now the exact stage upon which their destruction is being broadcast. The Duggar legal team is currently backed into an impossible, terrifying corner, facing a massive credibility dilemma that has absolutely no winning outcome. On one hand, if Jim, Bob's attorneys attempt to ruthlessly enforce these NDAs and file massive civil lawsuits against the crew members speaking to the police, they will instantly look incredibly guilty. In fact, legally, trying to enforce an NDA to stop someone from speaking to prosecutors about a potential felony can be construed as active obstruction of justice, a serious crime in and of itself. On the other hand, if the family sits back and lets the crew speak freely without threatening them, the entire wholesome, conservative Christian television persona they have monetized for nearly 20 years will be completely vaporized. This won't be destruction by internet rumors or anonymous blog posts. This will be total annihilation by sworn, eyewitness testimony from the exact people who lived with them, traveled with them, and watched them through the lens of a camera for thousands of hours. It is a double bind of catastrophic proportions. The stakes have now escalated far beyond the realm of reality television gossip. This isn't just a scandal for the tabloids anymore. Major, highly respected entertainment industry outlets like Variety and The Hollywood Reporter are reportedly gathering insider quotes from furious, deeply traumatized former audio mixers and senior producers who are finally ready to break their silence. These aren't disgruntled interns or people looking for 15 minutes of fame on a podcast. These are verified, highly paid Hollywood production professionals, veterans of the industry who have worked on dozens of shows, going officially on the record to completely destroy Joseph Duggar's anticipated defense. The narrative that the family was completely normal off camera is completely shattering as these seasoned professionals describe an environment that was suffocating, highly controlled, and frequently deeply unsettling. According to exclusive theories and insider reports leaking from production circles, the absolute knockout blow for the Duggar family's defence lies in a highly classified, heavily guarded incident involving a veteran TLC audio technician. During the 2020 Florida trip, which was supposed to be heavily featured as a fun, light-hearted family vacation, things took a deeply sinister turn. A leaked quote from a former audio tech reveals that the production team constantly caught bizarre, highly inappropriate whispers and deeply disturbing muttered conversations on Joseph Duggar's hot mic during sprawling family gatherings. In reality television production, cast members wear wireless lavalier microphones. These microphones are notoriously sensitive, and they continuously transmit audio directly to the sound mixer's cart, even if the cast member walks away from the camera, steps into another room, or assumes the filming has stopped for lunch. The audio technicians wear noise-cancelling headphones, listening to isolated, crystal-clear tracks of every single breath, whisper, and side conversation. According to the deeply troubling insider reports, what the audio mixers heard coming from Joseph's isolated microphone was so sickening and so drastically out of line with the family's public image that it sent shockwaves through the production crew. The technician allegedly documented these chilling, inappropriate whispers, noting the exact timestamps and the incredibly disturbing context of the off-camera interactions. But instead of this evidence being preserved or handed over to authorities at the time, exclusive theories suggest that high-ranking network executives were immediately notified. Panicked over the potential loss of their biggest cash cow, these executives allegedly flew in, completely bypassed standard production protocols, and deliberately wiped the massive hard drives containing the isolated audio tracks. They purged the sickening truth to protect the network's investment, leaving the traumatized crew members holding the horrific knowledge of what they had just heard. This catastrophic failure of character is rooted in supreme arrogance. Joseph Duggar, entirely insulated by his family's immense wealth and his father's terrifying level of control over the TLC network, seemingly operated under the absolute delusion that the massive camera crew surrounding him were just mindless, invisible employees. He behaved as if the people holding the boom mics and operating the heavy cameras were entirely blind and deaf to reality, assuming they would instinctively, blindly protect him simply because his father's multi-million-dollar contracts ultimately signed their paychecks. Joseph's behaviour on that 2020 Florida trip demonstrated a total, reckless disregard for the fact that he was surrounded by dozens of sharp, observant industry professionals who saw right through the forced smiles, the awkward side hugs, and the deeply sanitised religious rhetoric. He thought the NDA was a magical shield that made him invincible, never realising that the crew deeply resented the suffocating, oppressive environment Jim Bob had created, and they were quietly, meticulously taking mental notes of every single bizarre interaction. Now, as the crisis deepens, any standard PR strategy the Duggars attempt to deploy is destined to fail spectacularly. If Joseph's legal team or Jim Bob's spokespeople release a highly sanitised public statement claiming that these former TLC crew members are just disgruntled, bitter employees making up wild stories to seek their own 15 minutes of fame, it will fall completely, utterly flat. The public simply won't buy it. These veteran Hollywood producers and audio mixers are not going to the glossy tabloid magazines for a quick payday. They are not sitting down for tearful daytime talk show interviews. They are going straight to the Florida State Attorney's office. They are sitting in stark, brightly lit interrogation rooms, looking seasoned felony prosecutors in the eye and swearing under penalty of perjury that what they witnessed on that 2020 Florida trip was highly disturbing and warrants a massive criminal investigation. You cannot spin a sworn legal deposition as a desperate plea for fame. The sheer gravity of where these crew members are taking their terrifying stories completely strips the Duggars of their usual defensive tactics. It is a moment of profound, undeniable thematic hypocrisy. We are witnessing the spectacular downfall of a fundamentalist family that built its entire staggering wealth, its massive real estate portfolio, and its immense political influence on recording their supposed infallible truth for the masses. For almost 20 years, they allowed cameras into their living rooms, their delivery rooms, and their private vacations, telling the world that they were the ultimate moral authority, the shining example of a perfect, godly family. Now, in an incredibly poetic twist of justice, that entire fraudulent empire is about to be utterly destroyed by the exact same people who were hired to operate those cameras. The people paid to frame the perfect shot, to adjust the perfect lighting on Jim Bob's smiling face, are the very ones tearing the entire facade down to the studs. The profound isolation the Duggar family is currently experiencing is unprecedented. Reports state that Jim Bob Duggar has been frantically trying to secure elite, high-powered crisis public relations firms out of Los Angeles and New York to help manage the catastrophic fallout of these upcoming testimonies. But even the most ruthless, highly paid spin doctors in the industry are reportedly refusing to take his desperate phone calls. The reality check has finally hit the compound. The high-powered fixers know that no amount of perfectly crafted press releases, no amount of forced family YouTube videos, and absolutely no spin doctor on the face of the earth can fix the devastating damage of multiple sworn testimonies from a completely independent television crew. The PR firms know this is a radioactive situation, a sinking ship that will drag down anyone who tries to defend it. We are rapidly approaching the ultimate point of no return for this family. The countdown has already begun. The absolute, undeniable moment of destruction will arrive the exact second the first former Counting On field producer or the traumatized audio mixer takes the heavy wooden witness stand in a Florida courtroom. The second they raise their right hand, swear to tell the whole truth, and begin to recount the sickening details of the 2020 Florida trip, the entire reality television illusion will permanently shatter. It will be replaced by the clinical, horrifying, undeniable truth of what really happened in the dark when the director finally yelled cut. The millions of viewers who watched the show for years will finally realise they were sold a carefully crafted nightmare disguised as a wholesome dream, and the Duggars will finally have to face the terrifying consequences of their hidden reality. To truly understand the sheer catastrophic magnitude of this unfolding legal nightmare, we have to pull back the curtain and meticulously examine the exact details of that fateful 2020 Florida trip. According to insider reports and highly detailed exclusive theories circulating among seasoned reality television production veterans, this specific vacation was designed to be the ultimate, shining centerpiece of the Duggar family's broadcast season. The network had poured a massive budget into this specific location shoot. The itinerary was packed with carefully choreographed, wholesome family activities designed to project an image of perfect, sun-drenched, unified conservative bliss. We are talking about highly coordinated beach outings, forced family dinners under the pristine Florida sunsets, and endless talking head interviews where the siblings would praise their upbringing. But behind the blindingly bright camera lights, beneath the surface of this manufactured paradise, the reality on the ground was allegedly a suffocating, deeply toxic environment that left the entire Hollywood production crew physically exhausted and psychologically disturbed. The crew members who flew down to Florida were not amateurs. These were battle-tested industry professionals who had worked on highly demanding, chaotic television sets across the globe. They were accustomed to massive egos, demanding talent, and grueling 14-hour shoot days in the sweltering heat. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared them for the chilling, oppressive atmosphere dictated by Jim Bob Duggar and the deeply unsettling off-camera behaviour of Joseph. According to exclusive theories derived from production leaks, the control Jim Bob exerted over the set was absolute and terrifying. Crew members were reportedly instructed on how to speak, where to look, and were heavily monitored to ensure they never interacted with the family members outside of strictly controlled, on-camera scenarios. It was a paranoid, highly militarized production environment designed to prevent any accidental leaks of the family's true dynamic. But Jim Bob's draconian control methods completely failed to account for the most fundamental aspect of modern television production: the unrelenting, highly sensitive audio equipment that captures absolutely everything. Let us dive deep into the mechanics of the devastating hot mic incident that is currently threatening to send shockwaves through the Florida State Attorney's Office. In the world of high-end reality television, the audio mixing department is the absolute nerve center of truth. While cameras can only capture what is directly in front of their lenses, the audio mixers are constantly listening to a dozen different isolated, hypersensitive audio feeds simultaneously. Cast members are outfitted with state-of-the-art wireless lavalier microphones, strategically hidden beneath their clothing to capture every breath, every sigh, and every whispered conversation. During the 2020 Florida trip, according to insider reports, an elite, highly experienced audio technician was stationed at the sound cart, baking in the suffocating Florida humidity, wearing heavy noise-cancelling headphones that isolated the world entirely, leaving only the crystal-clear audio of the Duggar family transmitting directly into his ears. This technician was allegedly monitoring the isolated audio track assigned specifically to Joseph Duggar. The cameras had temporarily stopped rolling to adjust lighting for a sprawling family gathering scene, and the general assumption among the cast was that the production was effectively on a break. But the microphones were still hot. They are always hot. According to deeply disturbing exclusive theories that are now reportedly being heavily scrutinized by Florida prosecutors, the audio technician suddenly heard something that froze the blood in his veins. It was not a casual conversation. It was not a joke taken out of context. It was a series of bizarre, highly inappropriate whispers, muttered in a tone that was so drastically, fundamentally different from the cheerful, "aw shucks" persona Joseph portrayed on camera that it instantly triggered massive alarm bells. The insider report suggests that the specific content of these whispers, the deeply troubling context in which they were spoken, and the sheer predatory nature of the isolated audio track were so sickening that the veteran sound mixer physically recoiled from his equipment. In that terrifying moment, the reality television illusion completely disintegrated. The sound mixer, a professional who had likely heard thousands of hours of mindless reality TV chatter, recognized instantly that he had just captured potential evidence of something incredibly dark. According to these exclusive theories, the technician immediately flagged a senior field producer, quietly pulling them aside, away from the prying eyes of Bob Duggar, to play back the isolated, time-stamped audio file. What happened next is perhaps the most damning, explosive aspect of this entire cover-up, a sequence of events that elevates this from a bizarre family scandal to a potentially massive corporate conspiracy. Standard operating procedure in any professional production environment, upon hearing audio that suggests highly inappropriate or potentially illegal behaviour, dictates an immediate halt, production, and an immediate report to the local authorities. But that is not what happened on the set of Counting On. Instead, insider reports claim that the senior field producer, visibly pale and panicked after hearing the horrifying audio, made a direct, encrypted phone call straight to the highest levels of the TLC network executive board. The reaction from the network was allegedly instantaneous and deeply sinister. They did not call the Florida police. They did not confront the Duggar family. Instead, exclusive theories suggest that top-tier network fixers were immediately dispatched, flying down to the Florida location with a singular, terrifying directive: protect the multi-million-dollar asset at all costs. The multi-million-dollar asset, of course, was the squeaky clean Duggar family brand. When these high-ranking executives arrived on the sweltering Florida set, they reportedly bypassed all standard chain-of-command protocols. They marched directly to the audio mixing cart, completely sidelined the traumatized technician who had discovered the audio, and executed a complete catastrophic purge of the digital evidence. According to these explosive theories, the executives deliberately wiped the massive, encrypted hard drives containing the isolated audio tracks from that specific afternoon. They permanently deleted the sickening truth, sacrificing the moral and potentially legal obligation to report the behaviour in favour of protecting the network's incredibly lucrative television ratings. The crew was then allegedly pulled into a highly intimidating, closed-door meeting where the million-dollar non-disclosure agreements were aggressively weaponised. They were explicitly reminded that speaking a single word about the deleted audio or the bizarre whispers caught on the hot mic would result in immediate termination, permanent blacklisting from the entire entertainment industry, and massive, financially ruinous civil lawsuits that would bankrupt their families. The message was crystal clear: You saw nothing. You heard nothing. And if you ever try to speak the truth, we will utterly destroy your life. For years, this aggressive, terrifying campaign of intimidation actually worked. The audio technician, the field producers, and the camera operators packed up their gear, returned to their normal lives, and carried the heavy, suffocating burden of what they had witnessed in Florida. They were bound by the chains of the ironclad NDAs, trapped in a silent nightmare while the world continued to consume the wholesome, carefully packaged lies broadcast into their living rooms every single week. But Jim Bob Duggar, in his supreme arrogance, and the network executives, in their desperate greed, fundamentally misunderstood the absolute limits of a civil contract. They believed their expensive lawyers had built an impenetrable fortress. But as exclusive theories are now heavily indicating, that fortress is currently being obliterated by the unrelenting force of the Florida criminal justice system. Fast forward to the present day, the situation has drastically, irreparably changed. The terrifying knock on the door that the former TLC crew members had simultaneously dreaded and hoped for has finally arrived. Insider reports claim that heavily armed investigators working directly for the Florida State Attorney's Office have begun physically tracking down these former production employees across the country. They are not arriving with polite requests for a quick chat. They are arriving with legally binding, completely inescapable state subpoenas. When a prosecutor hands you a subpoena in connection to an active felony investigation, the terrifying $1 million NDA signed in a sweltering Florida production tent instantly becomes nothing more than a worthless piece of paper. The legal mechanism is absolute. A private contract can never, under any circumstances, be used to conceal evidence of a crime from a sworn grand jury or state prosecutor. Imagine the sheer, overwhelming emotional whiplash these former crew members are currently experiencing. For years, they were terrified of Jim Bob's lawyers. They checked their rearview mirrors, they kept their mouths shut, and they swallowed their massive guilt. Now, according to these explosive exclusive theories, they are sitting across a sterile table from aggressive Florida prosecutors, and they are finally being given the ultimate legal green light to unleash the absolute truth. The relief of finally being able to unburden themselves of this horrifying secret is reportedly driving incredibly detailed, highly cooperative testimonies. These seasoned Hollywood professionals are allegedly providing prosecutors with exact dates, specific times, detailed descriptions of the wiped hard drives, and verbatim recollections of the sickening whispers caught on Joseph's hot mic. They are mapping out the exact anatomy of the network cover-up, systematically dismantling the Duggar defense strategy before it can even be officially formulated. Meanwhile, back at the heavily fortified Duggar compound in Arkansas, the atmosphere is allegedly one of sheer, unadulterated panic. According to insider reports, Jim Bob's legendary war room, where he has successfully strategized and spun his way out of countless past scandals, has completely descended into absolute chaos. The realization that he has entirely lost control of the narrative is reportedly tearing the family infrastructure apart. For over a decade, Jim Bob's ultimate superpower was his ability to control the flow of information. He controlled the edits, he controlled the interviews, and he controlled the crew through fear and financial threats. But you cannot financially threaten a Florida state prosecutor. You cannot intimidate a grand jury. The terrifying reality that independent, highly credible third-party witnesses are currently testifying under oath, completely outside of his sphere of influence, has allegedly left Jim Bob paralyzed with fear. The frantic, desperate legal maneuvering currently happening behind the scenes is staggering. Exclusive theories suggest that Duggar attorneys are desperately trying to find incredibly obscure legal loopholes to somehow block or seal the testimonies of the TLC crew members. They are reportedly attempting to argue that the NDAs should still apply because the erased audio was technically proprietary network material. But legal experts analysing these reports are laughing off these desperate tactics. Trying to enforce a corporate NDA to stop an active, high-level police investigation into deeply disturbing behaviour is the absolute definition of a losing battle. It is a spectacular display of legal desperation, a flailing attempt to stop an absolute tidal wave of truth from crashing down upon their carefully curated empire. What makes this impending destruction so incredibly compelling and so utterly devastating? for the Duggars is the undeniable credibility of the witnesses. If the allegations against Joseph were coming solely from an estranged family member or a bitter ex-friend, the formidable Duggar PR machine could simply attack the accuser's character, label them as a jealous liar, and spin a narrative of religious persecution. But how do you spin the sworn, incredibly detailed testimony of an entire independent television production crew? These are union workers. These are highly skilled technicians whose entire careers are built on their ability to accurately observe, record, and document reality. They have absolutely no personal vendetta against the Duggar family. They simply went to work in Florida in 2020, did their jobs, and happened to record something that was so horrifying it forced the network into a massive, illegal cover-up. According to insider reports, the prosecution strategy is heavily relying on this sheer volume of independent verification. They are not just bringing in the deeply traumatized audio mixer who heard the hot mic. They are allegedly subpoenaing the field producers who witnessed the network fixers arrive, the camera operators who saw the change in Joseph's demeanor off camera, and the production assistants who were threatened in that terrifying closed-door meeting. They are building a massive, impenetrable wall of eyewitness testimony that completely traps the family in their own lies. This isn't just one person's word against Joseph's. It is the entire, highly orchestrated apparatus of reality television production, turning its massive spotlight directly onto the darkest, most hidden corners of the Duggar family's life. The absolute hypocrisy of this entire situation is a heavy, inescapable theme that is driving the immense public interest in this case. Bob Duggar weaponized his ultra-conservative Christian faith to build a massive financial empire. He sold the American public a highly sanitized, carefully edited version of reality, demanding absolute moral authority while allegedly presiding over a deeply toxic, highly abusive, off-camera environment. He used his religion as an impenetrable shield, claiming that his family was fundamentally better, more righteous, and more pure than the secular world. But now, according to these explosive, exclusive theories, the secular world, represented by the very Hollywood professionals he secretly despised but happily employed to build his wealth, is the exact instrument of his total destruction. The people who perfectly lit his family prayers, who flawlessly mixed the audio of their Bible studies, are now the very ones swearing under oath to the terrifying, sickening reality that existed the exact second the cameras stopped recording. As these insider reports continue to leak to top-tier entertainment journalists, the sheer isolation of the Duggar family is becoming glaringly obvious. The massive, lucrative network, infrastructure that protected them for so many years has completely vanished. The high-powered Los Angeles crisis PR firms, sensing the absolute legal radioactivity of the situation, are allegedly refusing to touch the Duggars with a 10-foot pole. No reputable spin doctor wants their professional name attached to a massive, coordinated network cover-up of deeply disturbing behaviour caught on a hot mic. The Duggars are currently stranded on an island of their own creation, surrounded by the terrifying, rapidly approaching storm of the Florida legal system. They are entirely out of options, out of allies, and out of time. The tension surrounding this massive, unfolding scandal is thick enough to cut with a knife. The public is currently waiting with bated breath for the official confirmation of these explosive, exclusive theories. We are standing on the absolute precipice of one of the most devastating, earth-shattering reality television scandals in the history of the entertainment industry. The millions of viewers who previously tuned in to watch the Counting On series are now watching this real-life legal drama unfold with absolute horror and intense fascination. The carefully constructed, immensely profitable illusion of the perfect Duggar family has already been critically damaged, but the sheer, devastating impact of these upcoming crew testimonies will completely shatter the facade into a million unfixable pieces. The clock is ticking mercilessly towards the inevitable, highly anticipated courtroom showdown. Every single day brings new whispers of more crew members cooperating, more detailed timelines being established by the state attorney, and more panic radiating from the Arkansas compound. The terrifying secrets of the 2020 Florida trip, the sick reality of the wiped hard drives, and the arrogant, deeply disturbing off-camera behaviour of Joseph Duggar are no longer hidden behind ironclad million-dollar non-disclosure agreements. The muzzle has been completely removed. The camera crew is finally speaking, and the horrifying truth they are unleashing is about to change absolutely everything. As the inescapable reality of these legally mandated testimonies begins to set in, the sheer, unadulterated isolation surrounding the Duggar family has become a monumental spectacle in and of itself. According to highly detailed insider reports leaking directly from the upper echelons of the entertainment industry, Bob Duggar has been operating in a state of absolute, frantic desperation. He has allegedly spent the last several weeks frantically dialing the private, unlisted numbers of the most elite, ruthless, crisis public relations firms in Los Angeles and New York City. These are the legendary, high-powered spin doctors who are explicitly paid millions of dollars to magically erase A-list celebrity scandals, navigate massive corporate embezzlements, and bury the most devastating tabloid headlines before they ever see the light of day. For years, Bob had these incredibly powerful fixers on speed dial, utilising their dark arts to continuously polish the family's tarnished halo and deflect from an endless parade of controversies. But now, the dynamic has completely, irreparably shifted. Exclusive theories circulating within the ruthless world of Hollywood crisis management suggest that every single major PR firm is categorically refusing to take Bob's calls. Receptionists are reportedly hanging up. Emergency Zoom meetings are allegedly being abruptly terminated the second the scope of the Florida State Attorney's investigation is mentioned. The fixers, the lawyers, and the spin doctors all recognise one undeniable, terrifying truth. No amount of perfectly crafted press releases, no amount of forced, tearful family YouTube apologies, and absolutely no PR strategy on the face of the earth can fix the devastating radioactive damage of multiple sworn testimonies from an entirely independent television crew. You can easily spin a vague rumour. You can aggressively attack the credibility of an anonymous internet blog. You can even pay off a disgruntled former friend. But you cannot spin a completely sober, union-backed, veteran Hollywood audio technician sitting on a witness stand, looking a Florida judge in the eye and reading directly from a heavily scrutinised, time-stamped log of deeply disturbing, highly inappropriate whispers captured on a hot microphone. The public relations firms know that this specific scandal is a sinking ship strapped to a massive block of concrete. To associate their elite corporate brand with a family that is actively being investigated for horrific off-camera behaviour, while simultaneously being accused of participating in a massive multi-million-dollar network cover-up involving wiped digital hard drives, is absolute professional suicide. The Duggars are currently experiencing the terrifying, freezing cold reality of being completely ostracised by the very industry that created them. The multi-million-dollar television infrastructure that once provided them with unlimited resources, aggressive legal protection, and a massive platform to preach their extreme fundamentalist views has entirely evaporated, leaving them standing completely naked and utterly defenceless against the absolute wrath of the Florida criminal justice system. They are entirely cut off, isolated in their massive, heavily fortified Arkansas compound, helplessly watching the countdown clock tick closer to their total, undeniable destruction. This catastrophic downfall represents the ultimate, poetic, thematic hypocrisy of the entire Duggar empire. It is a narrative arc so perfectly, deeply ironic that it feels almost scripted, but the devastating reality is that it is entirely self-inflicted. Bob Duggar built his staggering, generational wealth, his massive real estate portfolio, and his terrifying level of political influence on the fundamental premise of recording his family's supposed infallible truth for the masses. For almost 20 uninterrupted years, he gleefully invited massive, intrusive camera crews into his living room, into the delivery rooms of his daughters, and along on their private family vacations. He aggressively sold the American public a highly sanitized, meticulously edited, heavily controlled version of reality, demanding absolute moral authority while allegedly presiding over a deeply toxic, terrifyingly abusive, off-camera environment. He used his religion as an impenetrable, diamond-plated shield, confidently proclaiming that his family was fundamentally better, infinitely more righteous, and vastly more pure than the secular world they so heavily criticised. But Jim Bob's supreme arrogance completely blinded him to the massive ticking time bomb he had invited directly into his own home. He operated under the fatal delusion that the camera operators, the lighting assistants, and the audio mixers were just mindless, invisible drones who would blindly protect his family's dark secrets, simply because his massive TLC contracts ultimately funded their paychecks. He assumed the million-dollar non-disclosure agreements were magical, unbreakable spells that would forever silence the secular world he openly despised. Now, according to these explosive, exclusive theories, that exact same secular world is the precise instrument of his total, irreversible annihilation. The very people who were hired to flawlessly light Jim Bob's smiling face, the technicians who were paid to perfectly equalise the audio of the family's televised Bible studies, are the exact individuals who are currently swearing under oath to the terrifying, sickening reality that existed the exact second the director yelled cut. A family that aggressively monetised the lens of a camera is about to be utterly destroyed by the people who were paid to focus it. The sheer, overwhelming magnitude of what is about to happen in that Florida courtroom cannot be overstated. We are rapidly approaching the absolute, undeniable point of no return. According to insider reports, the Florida State Attorney's Office has spent months meticulously building an impenetrable, terrifyingly detailed timeline of the 2020 Florida trip. They have allegedly cross-referenced hotel receipts, flight logs, and specific production schedules to perfectly align with the explosive, horrifying testimonies of the former TLC crew members. They are not walking into this courtroom with a handful of vague accusations. They are reportedly armed with a massive, undeniable mountain of circumstantial and testimonial evidence that will completely shatter any defence the Duggar legal team attempts to mount. The strategy of the prosecution is allegedly designed to be a total, overwhelming shock and awe campaign. Exclusive theories suggest they fully intend to systematically parade these former television production professionals onto the witness stand, one by one, to methodically dismantle the Duggar family's wholesome facade, brick by agonising brick. Imagine the suffocating, unbearable tension in that courtroom the moment the massive, heavy wooden doors swing open and the very first former Counting On senior field producer walks down the aisle. Imagine the absolute, deafening silence as they raise their right hand, swear to tell the whole truth under penalty of perjury, and take their seat in the witness box. In that precise, earth-shattering moment, the absolute illusion of reality television will permanently, violently shatter. When that producer leans into the courtroom microphone and begins to speak, they will not be constrained by the terrifying threats of Jim Bob's lawyers. They will not be silenced by the crushing financial weight of $1 million non-disclosure agreement. They will be entirely protected by the absolute authority of the American legal system. And they will finally, mercifully, unleash the horrifying truth. According to insider reports, the testimony will completely strip away the bright, sunny, carefully colour-corrected filters of the TLC editing bay. The jury, the judge, and the massive, frenzied media circus gathered outside the courthouse will not hear about a fun, light-hearted family vacation to the beach. Instead, they will be forced to listen to the clinical, terrifying, deeply disturbing reality of Joseph Duggar's off-camera behaviour. They will hear the exact, excruciating details of how a veteran audio mixer, baking in the suffocating Florida heat, suddenly heard an incredibly dark, predatory series of whispers transmitted directly into his noise-cancelling headphones. They will hear the precise, horrifying context of those muttered conversations, and they will hear how those deeply inappropriate words completely contradicted everything the family claimed to stand for. But the absolute knockout blow, the testimony that will send permanent shockwaves through the entire global entertainment industry, will be the detailed, agonising account of the massive network cover-up. Exclusive theories indicate that these brave crew members will testify under oath about the exact moment the panicked, high-ranking TLC executives stepped off a plane, marched directly onto the set, completely bypassed standard legal protocols and deliberately, aggressively wiped the massive digital hard drives containing the undeniable proof of Joseph's sickening behaviour. They will describe the terrifying closed-door intimidation meetings where the NDAs were weaponised like loaded guns, and they will detail the suffocating, unbearable psychological toll of being forced to carry that dark, horrifying secret for years. When the cold, hard, unedited transcript of this legal proceeding replaces the heavily edited, cheerful montages of the reality show, the Duggar brand will instantly, permanently turn to ash. The millions of loyal viewers who tuned in every single week, the fans who purchased their books, attended their speaking engagements, and blindly defended them against every previous scandal will experience a profound, devastating psychological whiplash. They will finally realise with absolute terrifying clarity that they were aggressively sold a meticulously crafted nightmare, brilliantly disguised as the ultimate American conservative Christian dream. There is absolutely no coming back from this. The carefully constructed fortress of lies has been breached, the ironclad NDAs have been legally incinerated, and the highly trained television crew is finally speaking the devastating truth. The cameras have officially stopped, rolling on the Duggar family's massive reality television empire. But the absolute darkest, most terrifying, and most damning scene of their entire lives is just about to play out under the harsh, unforgiving, and completely unedited fluorescent lights of a Florida criminal courtroom. The sickening truth caught on tape may have been desperately wiped by terrified network executives, but the haunting, indelible memory of what was heard on that hot mic has survived, and it is entirely ready to exact its devastating, undeniable justice.